Lacrosse community, my name is Ryan Berns. I'm the founder of the Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, to recognize the skills you gain from the sport, to ultimately live your best life possible. Today, we're so fortunate to be joined by the 2022 MCLA National Championship coach, Kyler Banks from Utah. Kyler, oh my gosh, so much fun watching you this past week and weekend. You guys performed to the highest possible point. Amazing to see. For those in our community, though, who aren't quite aware of your story, the team's story, can you share a little bit with us? How'd you get into lacrosse? How'd your journey take you to be a national championship coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, and the way I got into lacrosse was my third grade teacher actually played at Georgetown, and that perfectly culminated with my my boredom with baseball. So I found out lacrosse was in spring during the same time as baseball, and I said, you know what, let's give it a try. So hopped onto Craigslist, went and bought a bunch of used gear, and got it all. Played my first season third grade and absolutely loved it, and never really turned back from there. And then kind of leading into how I got started at Utah specifically. So I got recruited out to play Division II at Westminster College in Salt Lake City. And then after a little bit of time there, I realized that I didn't love the school. I wanted something a little bit bigger. So I ended up switching over to the University of Utah, where we had just started that process of going from MCLA D1 to NCAA D1. And so when I got there, I didn't necessarily want that full commitment of playing NCAA ball anymore, but I really wanted to still be around the sport and do something that I loved. And the only opportunity we had was the club team. And that club team was really about 12 guys playing pickup whenever we could get field time. Throw on a plank of wood in the goal and have it at it. And that kind of transformed into a men's league team, which basically kept growing and growing until we had like 18 guys. And then it finally culminated this last fall when we were really just playing pickup, just 15, 20 guys, just getting out there, having fun, throwing around. And then one day the MCLA said, hey, you know, if you're at a varsity school, we're going to allow you to have a club program. So all the guys in that were still in school really jumped on that opportunity. And sure enough, we were granted the ability to play MCLA ball, which everybody was beyond thankful for. And then it really just culminated. I had already graduated, so I would just come and play pickup just because it was the best lacrosse I could find near me. And a bunch of the guys said, hey, you know, you've been around this team for so long. You know what you're talking about. You know, you really know the guys. Would you be interested in being a standing coach? And so at first it was just, you know, I'll hop on and let's see how this goes. And after a couple weeks, couple months, they asked me and said, hey, you know, this is really, really good. You're relating well to the players. You're really putting in things that are working for us. Do you want to stay on full time? And it was probably the easiest decision I've ever had to immediately say yes and just hop right on. And then I can touch on it too, but that's really just kind of how our program got started and how we got the foundation to where we are now.
It's crazy. And I don't know if everyone's realizing this. The Utah team went D1. You all just were playing lacrosse because you love the sport. You can tell the passion, Kyler, that you have and the guys have as well when you're watching you play. It's just a blast. Then you get this opportunity to restart the club program. And this is year one of that, and going ahead and winning the national championship. And it is just truly incredible. Throughout your career, throughout coaching so far, do you have a pinnacle moment, or are there a few pinnacle moments that stick out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, how could I not say that was one of the pinnacles of my career was winning a national championship? That was something special. And to do it year one and really just to see the improvement of our team. You go back and look at some of our early season games and some of our losses, you'll see that this team wasn't always the way it is. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of breaking and rebuilding and a lot of different things like that. Outside of that, for me, another moment that sticks out was I won my state championship in high school against a lot of players that are some of the main guys in college lacrosse. So I beat a team with Tucker Dordovic, Sam Hanley on it. And at the time, I had no idea that they'd be the phenomenal players they are in Division I and likely into the PLL. But looking back on that and now kind of combined with my national championship, those are probably the two highest moments for me in my lacrosse career.
Oh, man, it's great to see that you have these championships and they build on one another. You mentioned, though, that it wasn't always easy. You guys had hardship earlier in the season and you were able to build and change. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What did it take to ultimately be so successful at the end? How'd you get the buy-in, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I'll touch on, I think one of the biggest challenges we had, blessing and a curse, is we had a lot of really talented freshmen on our team, but that means we have a very, very young team. And I think if you watch back the tournament, you'll see some of that immaturity show itself in our offense, where we're not playing team ball or we're not playing as great as we should be. And that was one of the biggest things for us, is just empowering our guys to have the confidence and to show them that, hey, you may be younger than everybody else out here, but you know how to play. We know you know how to play. So let's unlock that. Let's build up that confidence. So that was one of the biggest things we had to work on. And then secondly was just getting everybody to buy in. At the beginning of the season, it was, this is a club team, guys. It's just for fun. We're going to come out here. We'll play some games. We'll do our thing. And then as the season went on and we kind of saw the group that we had, we thought, hey, we might have the start of something special here. And so for us, it was really just building a strong relationship with our team and then helping them build strong relationships with each other. Because if you're friends with everybody you're around, it makes the whole team experience way more fun. You guys want to win together, you lose together, you do everything together. So we really, really stressed that you guys are a unit, whether it was doing conditioning, drills. We made sure everyone was on the same page. They cheered for each other. They worked together and everything like that. But I think the biggest catalyst was getting everybody to buy in. And it took a while, but I can point to one specific moment in our season, and that was the second quarter against BYU. For anyone who didn't see that game, we played BYU, and we went down 6-0 in the first quarter quickly. Just missed defensive assignments, poor subbing, a lot of mistakes. And I turned to my assistant coach, Jeremy, and I said, we might lose this 24-3. We might get blown out here. And that's how it felt for a second. And then all of a sudden this switch flipped in the second quarter, and we started to possess the ball a little bit. Our defensive possessions got stronger, and the sideline was getting a little bit more amped up. And you could just kind of see this energy shift that even though we were down 6-0, the guys had this spark of confidence of hey, maybe we can do this. Maybe we do have the talent and the ability and the knowledge and the know-how. And I really saw the team change that day. And even though the final score was 10-4, the sideline and the afterwards energy was just unreal. The guys were so amped and so proud of themselves for showing that, that's the number one team in Division I, and we hung with them for 3 quarters. So that was a really big moment. I think it really showed kind of the turning point for us.
Man, that's cool that you can identify the moment where you recognize a bit of a shift or the buy-in, and it comes with a David versus Goliath type of situation where you are lucky to have such a great team close by so you guys can have that competition. Ultimately, you've said some great things, Kyler, in terms of leadership, and we'll probably dive back into it, but I want you to define leadership first. What does leadership mean to you?
That's a great question. So, I have a few different ways, but I think the best way for me to define leadership is using and knowing your position within an organization or a team, and then leveraging that with your personal skills to basically be the best you can be towards that team. And what I mean specifically is you might not be the loudest person on the team or a great communicator, but you may have a great reputation and be able to lead by example. And there's several guys on our team that were like that, kind of very quiet guys, but they would come in every day, clock in and clock out, put that work in, and people saw that. And that's leadership. Some people, I'm not going to put them on blast, but there was one player who didn't necessarily see the field a whole lot this season. But every single game, he was the loudest one on the sideline. He was getting everybody amped, making sure everybody was screaming, celebrating for goals. And that's leadership too, because he's looking at his situation, his position, and saying, how can I be the most valuable and the most impactful from where I'm standing? And he did that. And he was absolutely massive for keeping our sideline amped and just keeping the team energy, vibe, and morale very, very high.
I think that's critical to recognize we all have different roles on a greater team or greater organization. And that's the beauty about lacrosse. It relates to a team and a sport, but it comes to the real world as well, where professionally we're doing so many different things. But ultimately, we have roles within the organizations we're a part of, and we can be leaders. We can bring others up around us. And one of the favorite things that I've heard you say so far, Kyler, is unlocking the confidence in the younger players. having them step up and rise above the abilities they believed in themselves, because I think that's the definition of leadership, is unlocking what people didn't even think was possible. Can you talk a little bit more about how you built this culture and the buy-in? I know you said there it was pivotal with BYU, but how did you guys build this or give them the opportunity to be so successful?
Yeah. So I think one thing that we kind of have the advantage and disadvantage of being younger coaches is we're not that much older than our players, but we really use that to our advantage, where we almost built these friendships with our players. So it not only felt like they could trust us, but we used that to build more respect and to really leverage that this is a collective group. And so once we kind of were on their side and we're friends, it made everything easier to just bring everybody together a little bit more. And I think above all else, kind of unlocking confidence is really just empowering your players. You know, if they shoot up behind the back in practice, we're not being like, hey, don't you ever do that again. We'll be like, hey, you know what? Maybe get one more step, you know, pull it a little bit more and try to aim for that bottom left. Instead of just constantly like getting on their case and being angry with them, you know, we took a very soft approach to a degree. Obviously very direct and still on their ass, but we want it to be very nurturing in a way, because so many of these guys were young and there wasn't a program before. So for us, it was about making things fun and competitive. Were kind of the motto for us, was fun but competitive. And that's something we strived for every day. We wanted to make sure we were getting better, but we didn't want to take the joy or the passion out of lacrosse for anybody. We wanted to make sure that was at the very top. And I think once they saw that we were able to make it both an environment where it was extremely competitive, extremely physical, extremely hard fought, but also extremely fun and rewarding, really helped for that buy-in and for everyone to want to keep coming back every day in practice.
And that's the biggest thing, is for people to show up as the best versions of themselves, to try as hard as they can day in and day out, because it's such a long season and it's grueling. And if you take your foot off the pedal a little bit, you start to fall back and lose compared to the other teams around the country. But it sounds like you really give the players the freedom to have fun, to try different things, as long as it's within a framework or a guardrail system that you guys put in place.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to summarize that.
I love that. That's great. Now, Kyler, all leaders face challenges. If you look back over the course of this year, are there any tough decisions you had to make, or can you share an example of something that was difficult that ultimately maybe people didn't agree with, but looking back was the right choice, or maybe not?
We had several. So let me think of the best one here. Okay, I would say that there's one example that sticks out to me is we had a player who was very, very good, and he ultimately didn't show up to practice and wasn't as involved as we would have liked him to be. And it became a very, very difficult situation where he was getting a little angry and wanted to see the field more, but ultimately he wasn't showing up to practice and putting in that work. And I'll never forget, we had a game against Montana State where he was sitting on the bench and he was giving me an earful. And I said, that's enough. And, you know, I had to make a decision at that point, because we had a pull in that was not playing his best that day. But at the same time, I didn't want to reward this behavior. But at the end of the day, I know that this team wants to win more than anything else. And so I had to put my pride and kind of what I thought aside for a second and say, what do we need to do to win this game? And that's putting him in the game. So I had to take somebody out that was there every day, was putting in that work, and take him out for someone that necessarily wasn't. But at the end of the day, it was the right call. He came in, he played phenomenal, and it really got him to buy into the team a little bit more as well. So at the end of the day, we won the game. He bought into kind of what the team was a little bit more, and it was really a lot easier moving forward after that.
There's some life lessons to be brought in from the game of lacrosse, and we know that talent can get you really, really far. But the most successful people are the ones that work hard and have the talent and cultivate it. Now, sometimes we do go into tough decisions where sometimes people aren't performing. And at the end of the day, like you said, we do want to win. We want to show up and have the best product on the field. And it's trying to mold and get the culture to fit with different people and personalities working together, which is so difficult. But ultimately, it sounds like you're able to get a little bit more buy-in, have conversations with yourself, and come to the understanding that, hey, this is someone we recognize could be an issue, but in the same time, it sounds like it's also an asset. It's just trying to balance it the right way.
100%. That balance it's tough, but that's the key.
So Kyler, now you guys have gone through, built this program basically from just a men's league team where you're literally shooting and playing against a board in the goal. So you have a goalie, to being able to be the national champions. What's this look like next for you? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? What are you shooting for now?
This team, they really shoot for the moon. When this team started and they said, we want to go to Texas, I'm not going to lie. I was like, that's a great goal, guys, but I think let's focus on the conference tournament. Let's start smaller. And then I kind of saw them progress. As for next year, we want to be right back in the tournament. Ideally, we want to win it all. That's the goal. But at the very least, we want to make sure that we're back in the tournament, back in Round Rock again next year. The guys had so much fun, minus the heat, and it's something they will remember for a lifetime. So be a lot better and a lot sweeter to do it again. So we're hoping to be right back where we were last year.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear that your ambition's right back where it is, upholding the standards that you guys have ultimately accomplished. It may be too soon, but what's your guys' mindset going into it? Have you guys started talking with the captains that you have, or how are you going to go about and ultimately try to strike gold twice?
Yeah, I mean, we have talked to the captains and kind of the whole team, and the first step is most of the guys are either playing men's league here in Utah or back home where they're from. So they'll have a stick in their hands over the summer, which is just huge. That 3-4 months where you're not doing much can really put some rust back on that stick. So luckily we won't have to worry about that. And then the guys are just all so ready to get after it again next year. They had so much fun and were able to get so much success and at some of the highest levels this season that they're just itching to get back out. And there's a lot of people that are saying that Utah can't do it in D1. So I think they saw that and they're just excited to go out and try to prove people wrong.
And correct me if I'm wrong, your guys' team isn't a bunch of the D1 guys that weren't playing. You guys were just ultimately guys that love lacrosse and were there on the school. Or can you share a little bit more what the team consisted of?
Yeah, absolutely. And you pretty much hit it on exactly. We're not a bunch of D1 redshirt guys. We're not a bunch of guys who didn't make the team or transferred in. It's really just a bunch of guys who love lacrosse and want to continue playing at a higher level. And obviously some of them could have the ability to probably play on that D1 team, but that's not what we're necessarily about. Is we don't want to be that extremely grindy. We want to be that fun lacrosse where you can still have fun at school and have a social life and do what you want to do as a college student. We don't want your entire life to be eat, sleep, breathe lacrosse, because that can take some of the fun out of it. We want it to be enjoyable, and that's what we provide. It's a place where kids can come and enjoy their college experience while playing lacrosse at a higher level. And that's exactly what we do. And it's exactly what we're going to continue to do with these players. And they're not the highest guys. They're not those D1 level guys. They're just guys that love lacrosse, that are at the University of Utah, and that have completely bought into this program. And I couldn't be more proud of them.
Oh, Kyler, this is such a great pitch about the MCLA and just college lacrosse. You can play at so many different levels, and you can be extremely competitive. You've got an opportunity to have a televised national tournament at the club level, which is just an incredible opportunity. But you get to have fun with it. You get to have a social life. You get to enjoy the school in a beautiful place. It's so great that you guys are able to recognize where you fit into all this as well and bring the guys in, be so successful. As we wrap up our call today, do you have any last thoughts or feelings about lacrosse or leadership that you could share with our community?
I would just say lacrosse it seems like for you too, it's taught me so many life lessons. If there's anyone out there that's thinking about getting into lacrosse, getting their kids in, just absolutely do it. If there was one thing I could go back, it would have been starting lacrosse maybe 2 years earlier if I could. I don't even know if they had it in first grade, but lacrosse has changed my life. It's the reason I'm out in Utah. It's the reason I'm where I'm at with everything. And it's taught me so much just about leadership, about life, about how to deal with people in difficult situations. And I can't thank the game enough for what it's done to me. Done for me.
Kyler, thank you so much, man. Congratulations. Thank you for being a part of this. So excited to follow you as well as the team moving forward. It's been a great time bringing you on the podcast. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.